Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, Korea will become the first country to hold a separate security dialogue with the 10 ASEAN countries next year. At the Korea-ASEAN summit in Brunei, President Park Geun-hye seeks to expand two-way ties beyond economic cooperation. Egypt's deposed President Mohamed Morsi and 40 members of his Muslim Brotherhood will stand trial early next month. They are charged with inciting violence that led to several deaths outside the presidential palace last year. Plus, this year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry has been awarded to 3 chemists for their contributions towards using cyber technology to better understand chemical processes. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, October 10th, and I'm Choi Yusun here in Seoul. In Brunei, on the second leg of her Southeast Asia trip this week, President Park Geun-hye emphasized expanding cooperation with the 10 ASEAN countries beyond economy and trade. Following the Korea-ASEAN summit, the two sides agreed to launch a security dialogue early next year. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports from Brunei.
President Park put great emphasis on the ASEAN region as a very important strategic partner throughout Tuesday's Korea-ASEAN summit.
앞으로 아세안 정상들과의 상호 방문이 자주 이루어져서 정치, 외교, 경제, 문화 등 모든 면에서 폭넓은 교류가 이루어지기를 기대합니다.
The president is known to have put forth, quote, shared peace, prosperity, and progress as the 3 major pillars or goals in Korea-ASEAN relations, which represents an expansion from the original focus, which was mainly on economic cooperation. Korean Deputy Foreign Minister Lee Kyung-soo told reporters that the two sides had agreed to set up a Korea-ASEAN security dialogue at a deputy ministerial level, as first proposed by President Park. The first meeting is expected to take place sometime next year. Korea would be the first individual country to hold such talks with ASEAN. Government officials in Seoul expect the dialogue to serve as an opportunity to discuss the North Korean issue regularly behind closed doors with Southeast Asian countries and secure support for its North Korea policy in the region. Korea and ASEAN also saw eye to eye on the need to upgrade its free trade agreement by the year 2015. The trade pact took effect back in 2009, and once it is upgraded as the two sides plan, bilateral trade volume is expected to jump to $300 billion by 2025 from the current $130 billion. And to strengthen cooperation in the cultural sector, President Park pledged to increase the number of Korean cultural centers in the ASEAN region. On Thursday, her last day here in Brunei, President Park will attend the ASEAN Plus 3 and East Asia summits, where she will seek to solidify Korea's strategic relationship with ASEAN member countries at a time when major powers like the U.S., China, and Japan are jockeying for greater influence. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News, Bandar Seri Begawan.
On Wednesday, President Park also held summit talks with the leaders of Brunei, Singapore, Australia, and Myanmar. During talks with the Sultan of Brunei, President Park asked the Bruneian government to support Korean companies seeking to participate in infrastructure projects in the country. Meeting with Australian Prime Minister Tony Abbott, President Park expressed hopes for the two sides to further strengthen their strategic cooperation. In a summit with Singaporean Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong, the two leaders agreed to further develop their free trade agreement. Lastly, President Park held talks with Myanmar's President Thein Sein and agreed to work closely together to persuade North Korea to take the path of peace and change. A former U.S. State Department official says North Korea may be willing to declare a moratorium on nuclear weapons and missile testing. Joel Witt, a senior fellow with the U.S. Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University, told Seoul-based Yonhap News that he was able to confirm Pyongyang's intentions in Berlin last month after meeting with Lee Yong-ho, the North's top nuclear envoy. Declaring a moratorium on nuclear weapons and ballistic missile testing was part of the U.S.-North Korea Leap Day deal last year, which called on Washington and Pyongyang to hold face-to-face talks on ways to denuclearize the North. And back here in the South, as prosecutors continue their investigation into why the controversial 2007 Inter-Korean Summit transcript was never sent to the presidential archives, a former aide to former South Korean President Noh offers some explanation. Our Yuri-an has more.
Close aides of former President Noh, who were tasked with handling presidential data, have spoken up for the first time over the missing transcripts from the summit between President Noh and late North Korean leader Kim Jong-il back in 2007. That same year, for the first time in the nation's history, President Noh ordered that presidential material be transferred to the National Archives. But prosecutors concluded recently that the transcripts from that summit meeting never made it into the archives. During a press conference Wednesday, Noh's former secretary in charge of speech content, Kim Kyung-soo, explained why the transcripts were not transferred.
The system did not transfer the transcripts to the National Archives Center because the original documents existed in the EG-1. There was no need to make the transfer.
EG-1 was an information management system used by Noh's office. Prosecutors, however, also said they found an erased file of the transcript in EG-1. The ruling Saenuri party has questioned whether Noh directed his aides to dispose of the transcripts in order to cover up his alleged remarks about giving up the nation's de facto maritime border in the West Sea during the summit talks with Kim Jong-il. In response to that, aides of former President Noh said they had erased the original transcript after creating a final version with different titles and expressions for diplomatic practice. Prosecutors maintain, however, that erasing the original draft is still against the law. They are expected to summon other former aides of former President Noh to try and determine who ordered the data to be deleted. Yuri-an, Arirang News.
30 years ago, a powerful bomb planted by North Korean spies went off in Myanmar, killing 17 South Korean government officials. The horrific incident, however, failed to damage diplomatic ties between South Korea and Myanmar, which have grown stronger ever since. Our Han Da-eun tells us more.
30 years ago today, at Aungsan National Cemetery in Yangon, 17 members of visiting South Korean President Chun Doo-hwan's entourage were killed instantly in a devastating bomb attack carried out by North Korea. Among the 17 were some of Seoul's top government officials, including the then Deputy Prime Minister, Foreign Minister, and Chief Presidential Secretary. Lee Gi-baek, then chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff and the only survivor among the entourage, recalls the horrific moment the bomb went off.
It felt like a quick flash of lightning, and then a huge explosion ripped through the area, killing almost everyone there. I always feel great sadness for all the victims who died while working overseas for our nation.
The pain and sadness felt by the bereaved families lingers, but relations between Myanmar and South Korea have changed dramatically over the past 3 decades. Myanmar's President Thein Sein has built bridges with the U.S. and the European Union through a series of sweeping reforms, and also strengthened relations with Seoul since former President Lee Myung-bak's visit to the country last May, the first by a sitting South Korean president since the 1983 bomb attack. The trade volume between South Korea and Myanmar has increased fourfold in 5 years, hitting nearly $1.7 billion last year, while other forms of trade, such as cultural exchanges, are also on the rise.
It's very important to maintain friendly relations with Myanmar given the country's ample manpower and natural resources. Its geopolitical location is also significant for South Korea.
Marking the 30th year since the Aungsan bombing, Seoul plans to erect a monument to remember the victims near the terror site. 한다은, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiations. President Park Geun-hye plans, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday. Over in Egypt, which is still dealing with the blowback from the ousting of former President Mohamed Morsi, authorities have announced when the deposed leader will go to trial. Local media is reporting that Morsi will stand trial along with 14 senior Muslim Brotherhood figures on November 4th on charges related to the deaths of at least 7 people during clashes last year between Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood supporters and opposition protesters. Over in the U.S., President Barack Obama has nominated Janet Yellen as the next chair of the Federal Reserve, referring to her as one of America's top economists and policymakers. Yellen has been the Fed's vice chair for past 2 years, and if confirmed by the Senate, she would become the first woman to run the central bank. She would replace Ben Bernanke, who has held the post for 8 years and whose term expires at the end of January. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers was previously the top candidate for the post, but withdrew his name last month in the face of opposition from Democratic senators who said he was too close to Wall Street. President Obama will hold a series of meetings with Republican and Democrat lawmakers this week to address the ongoing government shutdown, looming debt crisis, and financial stalemate. White House officials say Obama invited members of the House Democrats on Wednesday. Senate Democrats, House Republicans, and Senate Republicans will be asked to attend similar sessions in the coming days. The meetings come as Republicans accuse President Obama of not negotiating with them over the budget and debt ceiling impasse. The talks are becoming increasingly desperate as the U.S. will run out of borrowed money no later than October 17th unless Congress raises the $16.7 trillion debt limit. Nobel Prize Week continues in Oslo, and on Wednesday, the prize for chemistry was jointly awarded to 3 chemists. Martin Karplus, Michael Levitt, and Arya Warshall were recognized for coming up with computer simulations that can better understand and predict chemical processes. This ultimately opens the door for new kinds of pharmaceuticals as the program allows for drugs to be designed before experimentation. Though the rise of information technology has been a great success story here in Korea, not everyone has had the means to benefit. According to the OECD, young Koreans are top of the list when it comes to computer skills, but their older counterparts are far behind. Our Kim Min-ji tells us more about the digital skills divide.
When it comes to digital skills, young Koreans seem to be top-notch, able to adapt well to each new advance in technology. Almost all of the students in this class raise their hands when asked if they can handle computers well.
I started using the computer when I was 7 years old. Now I run my own blog and internet community site.
When I have homework, I do it on PowerPoint. I even make video clips.
In fact, more than 63% of Koreans between the ages of 16 and 24 have computer skills that rank at level 2 or 3 out of 3, according to a new report by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development on key skills used by adults at work and at home. But the older generation doesn't seem to be keeping up with the technological trends very well. Less than 4% of Koreans between the ages of 55 and 65 are able to use computers well, which is far below the OECD average of 11.7%.
I didn't even know what a computer was when I was young. Even if I learned something, I forget it the next day, so I don't even bother.
The findings are based on a survey of about 157,000 people aged 16 to 65 in 24 OECD nations, testing adult skills in 3 areas: literacy, numeracy, and problem-solving in a digital environment. Experts attribute the disparity in digital skills to the lack of social education for the elderly population compared to developed OECD nations and differences in education level between Korea's younger and older generations. As for literacy proficiency among adults from the ages of 16 to 65 years, Korea performs at the OECD average of 273 out of 500, which is similar to Canada and the UK, while Korea performs below average in numeracy and digital proficiency. But the 16 to 24 age group is well above the average in all three categories, which indicates just how tech-savvy the young generation is. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Curry dishes are widely popular here in Korea as they are in many places around the world. And new scientific research shows that eating an extra bite of the spicy cuisine may just improve your memory. Our Paul Lee tells us how Korean researchers are discovering that this timeless spice could boost your brain power.
Here at the Korea Food Research Institute, scientists have been studying the medicinal effects of curry powder on learning and memory functions in animals. This laboratory experiment involves a water maze where mice have been trained to seek shelter. The lab mice then undergo induced memory impairment before being placed into the water where they struggle to swim to safety. And after being fed a principal curry ingredient for a period of 4 weeks, the mice were able to find the solution at a faster rate.
The experimental group that was administered with Java turmeric was found to have escaped in less than 10 seconds, whereas the control group that was not administered with Java turmeric was confirmed to take longer than 30 seconds.
Korean scientists chose to isolate a certain active compound from curry powder called Java turmeric. The chemical is known to give the spice its rich aroma and yellow color. But this new research has found it also increases levels of neurotransmitters in the brain that affect a wide range of cognitive functions.
Compounds within Java turmeric include a neurotransmitter acetylcholine-like substance, which is associated with memory. We found that this acetylcholine-like compound inhibits the breakdown of memory-related enzymes or increases the synthesis of such enzymes.
The next step for the research team is to conduct clinical tests with patients aged 65 and older to further understand its effect on mental health, with plans to develop the compound into a functional health food product within the next 2 years. Paul Yi, Arirang News.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with Game 2 of the first round of the 2013 KBO playoffs between the Doosan Bears and the Nexen Heroes. After a dramatic walk-off win in Game 1, Nexen looked to take a 2-0 series lead on Wednesday. Now Game 2 stars Yoo Hee-kwan taking the mound for the Doosan Bears and Andy Van Hacken for the Nexen Heroes. Of course, both starting pitchers throwing blanks across the board. But of course, we go into the 8th inning of the game. Oh-jae Il to pinch hit, grounds out here, scoring Hug Young-min from third, and it's going to be 1-0 Doosan Bears. Over to the bottom of the inning, Hong Sang-sam on the mound, and a wild pitch scores Seok Chang, and it's tied 1-1. 9th inning of the game, Chung Soo-bin at bat. He's going to bunt over to the pitcher, but check this out. A wild throw scores Lee Jung-wook, and the Doosan Bears now take the lead 2-1. Bottom of the inning, bases loaded for Seok Chang. He draws the walk here, and it's tied 2-2. Bottom of the 10th inning, Kim Ji-soo at bat, and there it is, another walk-off win for the Nexen Heroes as they take this game 3-2 and a 2-0 series lead. And staying in the sport, but over to the majors where Choo Shin-soo is set to hit free agency now that his season is over. But the big question is, who's going to sign him, and who's got the money. Now, sources say that the two teams aggressively going after the center fielder are the New York Mets and his team, the Cincinnati Reds. However, with agent Scott Boras on Chu's side, his price might range between $90 to $100 million over a period of 5 to 6 years. The Mets are seeking a price tag of roughly $48 million over 4 years, while the Cincinnati Reds are rumored to trade their all-star second baseman Brandon Phillips in order to go after Chu. Now, Chu Shin-soo is coming off of a career year after hitting .285 with 21 home runs and 107 runs scored and 20 stolen bases to go with that. And now moving on to some Wednesday's K-League Classic action. The Pohang Steelers drew 0-0 against the Busan I-Park. Daegu FC over Jeonnam Dragons 2-1. Gyeongnam FC beats Daejeon 1-0. And Jeju United and Gangwon FC drew 1-1. So with that said, let's take a look at the highlights from the other two matches. Starting off with the super match here. FC Seoul taking on the Suwon Blue Wings. Going into the game here, Suwon in the first half of the match looking very aggressive, with the FC Seoul defense just barely holding on. But a scoreless first half for both sides here, and the second half kicks off. And the 58th minute of the match, here is Santos for the first goal of the match, and Suwon takes a 1-0 lead. We go over to the 82nd minute. Check this out. It's the North Korean Wayne Rooney sends one past the goalkeeper here, and it's now 2-0. FC Seoul offense nowhere to be seen in this match as Suwon holds on to win this match 2-0. And moving on, the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors taking on the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers. A rather quiet first half of the match with both sides struggling to find the back of the net. Second half comes along and it's still relatively quiet, but in the 86th minute, Kevin Orris to the rescue as he heads this one in. That's his 14th goal of the season. Ulsan looking desperate in the final minutes, but Jeonbuk holds on to take 3 points. 1-0, your final score. And finishing things off, have you ever had that nightmare where you get to be the Olympic torchbearer and the flame goes out? Well, that nightmare is coming true for some of the torchbearers for the 2014 Sochi Winter Games. Now, the torch, which is named the Firebird, has been a problem for the torchbearers as the Olympic flame went out 4 times in the past 4 days. A video of one of the incidents went viral on the internet where one official had to use a lighter to relight the torch during the run. Sochi organizers say that it's not a big problem and the issue will be dealt with soon. And with all that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning, I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, it's gonna be partly to mostly sunny Thursday across the region with highs in the mid-20s throughout the day. But please be aware that we're looking at a chance for scattered showers throughout the day in some of the areas down south because the central region will be under the influence of high pressure system from the west, but the southern provinces will be the edge of the system, which could trigger some pop-up showers to the southern provinces. And this morning we may see some patches of fog in the inland region, which should burn up quickly with the sunrise. And heading towards the evening, the clouds can be thickened. Now tomorrow there's a chance for a few spotty showers early in the morning in the central region, and this shower will bring down afternoon highs for Seoul and surrounding areas. I would say 4 to 5 degrees lower compared to today, so it will feel quite chilly in the afternoon, even with the afternoon autumn sunshine tomorrow. So get ready for that. And morning low and afternoon high should be similar to yesterday. So let's take a look at the ratings for today. So we'll get up to 26 degrees Celsius, which is 79 degrees in Fahrenheit. And the afternoon high in Daegu and Gwangju will top out at 25, while Busan will rise to 24. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will hike up into the mid-20s, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang will enjoy breezy weather with a good amount of sunshine. Now that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all from me at this hour. Enjoy your morning commute and have a wonderful Thursday.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Stay with Arirang TV for more on the day's headlines.